Hey folks, this is Matt Rainwater, and today we're going to be reading episode 14 of Trailer Park Warlock. This is one of my favorite episodes from season 1 because it's kind of my ode to Coast AM, a radio show that I've listened to for a long time and have listened to a lot while working. Um, especially while drawing Trailer Park Warlock, but even before then, it was, I would say, a big influence on some of the humor, some of the ideas I had about story ideas, things like that. So, anyway, that's kind of a little introduction to this before we get into the episode. Here we go. From the heart of the Rockies, I bid you all good evening. This is Shore to Shore FM, your twilight guide to the paranormal. So yeah, that was like my little version, some kind of easily recognizable version of like, oh, this is like Coast to Coast AM. I like that it's FM because that's silly. I'm your host, Don Edison, and tonight we're speaking with a self-proclaimed warlock for hire. In the studio with me is Jake Baker, a practiced magician, sorcerer, wizard, or as you say, Jake, warlock? So Don Edison, that name, I basically was like, okay, so Don Edison looks like George Norrie, who is like the current head host of Coast to Coast AM, but the name is more of a nod at Art Bell because Bell is okay. So here's the logic I did in my brain. Uh, Bell's last name is the same as I can't remember the dude's first name, but there's an inventor or a scientist by the name of Bell. So I was like, okay, let's go one to the side and do Edison, and then use a one syllable name like Dawn. That was basically the logic. Even though Art Bell does make his likeness makes a cameo later on, and I think it's in the second part of this two-parter. So anyway, back to where we are. Don Edison's asking Jake about how he calls himself a warlock, and Jake is going, "That's right. A lot of people get uncomfortable when they hear that word, but I promise I won't bite. Har har har. So, as a practicing warlock, are you part of a coven or a secret circle of some kind? I'm just wondering. Where do you learn your spells?" And so now we're cutting to Darla's listening to this radio program while she's trucking, and she happens to be in Nevada right now. No, just a bunch of codexes you gotta read, some religious texts from around the world, a couple of workshops and night classes at tech school. What about pacts? Do you have a signed contract with the devil? No. You need a certificate from the Mancers Union, though. So this is funny. This whole thing about the Mancers Union turned out, I mean, when I first wrote it, it was just like a little offside joke. And so now as we're like getting into later seasons of Trailer Park Warlock, it's starting to become a thing, right? And this is how I enjoy writing this series is there are a lot of little things that start off as side jokes or gags or just little quips, and over time I want to turn them into bigger things to create like a more concrete world. Well, Jake, as a practitioner of what some consider the dark arts, I imagine you've seen a lot of strange things in your time. I get it. I get a lot of listeners calling in about some really wild stuff out there, Jake. Bigfoot, shadow people, UFOs, extraterrestrials. The list is getting bigger every day. What sort of paranormal experiences have you had? So we're seeing, as Darla's listening to this program, right, she throws a banana peel out, and there's this big lone light in the sky. I've got it. Okay, is this Jake? So here's something that might be an issue. You can't really tell who's talking, but yeah, this is Jake talking. I've got a lot of personal experience with big feet. Your listeners should know they don't take well to that name. I ain't heard of these shadow people. As for UFOs, aliens, and whatnot, I've never seen a lot of good proof. So now the signal's going out of Darla's radio, and her truck stops. Ah, dang, I just got this thing fixed. Click, click. A big light comes from outside our window. And we cut and we see that there is a spaceship hovering above her. And now Darla is freaked out, reaches into her pocket, and this begins a whole thing that will become a thing later on in the story, right? Darla takes a Sharpie out of her pocket. Jake, Darla, and the airwaves. So this is actually, this is interesting because this is really late in the episode to have the title, which I think this is the only time I've ever done that. Because we're probably about halfway through. We'll see. I know there are some people out there who would want to pick your brain about this. What do you think about taking some calls? All right. Okay, East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi, Dawn. June from Ohio here. I just wanted to ask your guest if you had any knowledge about what happened to the moon a couple months back. So, of course, Jake is like a little bit shooken about this because it had everything to do with him. Was that related to the giant monster that attacked Denver? Well, I reckon it's possible. But I don't know. Could have been an asteroid or something. I like this panel was added by suggestion of editor Ethan LeBlanc. He thought it'd be a good idea to have just some kind of little visual tick from Jake to further suggest that he is not willing to give up information. You know what I mean? Because this becomes part of the background story of the rest of season 1. Is Jake's trying to kind of hide that the whole thing with Buddy and the moon getting split apart and all that stuff. He's trying to hide that had anything to do with him, right? So anyway, moving on. Next caller, you're on Shore to Shore. I like this panel for some reason. I just really like this gesture that Dawn's doing. Fellow Dawn, I beseech thee in thine raptured audience. The knave thou makes merry with is a barbarous wretch and villain to my kind. Yeah, I've had a run-in with this fellow. And who, may I ask, is making this call, listener? I am Equius, who hails from Casper, Wyoming. So now we have a name for that Equimancer from the very first episode. Equius. Oh no, we always had that name. Now we have a location. I was trying to remember. There's a part in that panel is like, oh, here's more information about this character. It's where he lives. So anyway, cutting now to Darla. She is coming to. And she notices that she's been abducted. And that's the end of this episode. We will continue from there. So, any thoughts that I have? Like I said, I really like this episode a lot. This is an episode. In the next part, we start covering some stuff about how magic works in this world. And that was kind of always the intention for this, was because Jake's being interviewed, we can, from a different perspective, sort of get a more broadened idea of how everything's working in the story. And it's actually a pretty crucial, as far as like the overall story of Trailer Park Warlock, this episode is actually really crucial because it kind of lays the foundation for everything else later on. So anyway, if you would like to follow me on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Matt Jade Rainwater, on Instagram at Matthew Rainwater, And if you're watching this, you probably already follow me on Patreon, but just in case, that's patreon.com/MattJRainwater. Anyway, as always, it is good hanging out. Good, it's fun to read this with y'all, and we'll do this again soon. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.